The number one question people want to know based on this poll that I ask subscribers is what investing account is best for them. This is a great question to ask because you might miss out on gains if you pick the wrong one. You might pay a lot more in taxes picking the wrong one. You might just be confused because you don't understand how it works if you pick the one that's not best for you. And you may not be able to access your own money when you want to if you pick one that doesn't suit your future life plans. There's even an instance where you could lose track of the money that you already have, like literally losing your car keys, but it's thousands of dollars instead. So let's prevent all that from happening and lay out all the different investing accounts that you might want to use, the reasons why you might want to use them, and how they fit into your life plans. To do that, I'm going to pick something out of my investing masterclass for beginners and share this asset with you. There's a bunch of interesting things I could share from that class, but for today, I'm just going to share this one at the end, which is this infographic on how to pick the right investing account for you. So let's get started. The number one most important question we can ask is, what are you investing for? Is it for retirement or for not retirement? If it's for retirement, we've got a lot more questions to ask. But if it's for not retirement, all we have to do is go all the way down here to the bottom and say, boom, taxable brokerage account. Easy peasy. Go for it right now. It's that simple. So if you know that you're investing for just a few years or just to play around, just to kind of see what investing is all about, don't bother with any kind of specialized account. A taxable brokerage account is the right one for you. And if you're even unfamiliar with that term, taxable brokerage account is just the name that's given to like the most basic, common, everyday investing account that's out there. There's no limits on how much you can invest in it. There's no limits on when you can really take the money out of it. You can buy and sell as much as your heart's content, and you can have that money whenever you feel like it. So if it's not retirement for you, go for the taxable brokerage. If you are investing for retirement or for a really, really long time horizon that needs to set you up for the rest of your life, now let's talk. The next question we need to ask is, do you want to access all the money without any penalty before you're 60-ish years old? And the reason that we need to ask that question is that 60 is about the age that the government sets up for a retirement age. So whenever we're going to use any of these other specialized accounts that are like retirement oriented, if you're not at least about that old, you can't get the money out of the account without a penalty in general. Now we're going to keep getting into the nuance of this, but this is the first sort of dividing line we need to draw. Do you want to access a significant chunk of the money before you're 60-ish? Now, if you're really confident and you know, no, I'm setting this money aside. I do not need to touch it. I've got savings. I've got other means to buy a house and to do other stuff. So there's no reason why I need to touch this money. Then you'll keep following that little path down the nope area. But if you think you do want to be able to access that money, let's go over into the middle and go to yes, I do. Yes, if you do want to access some of that money, then the question is, how much do you want to be able to access? Because that's going to determine some things. So is it lots of the money or is it all of the money? Now, I realize this is something that you're trying to predict what your future needs are in life, and no one can really do that. But a lot of this stuff with investing comes down to your preference. What helps you to sleep at night? What's helping you right now to even answer this question and go, I don't really feel like I need to have all of it. Or if you're feeling in your gut like, well, yeah, I want to be able to touch it all if I need to, then that's the answer. That's all you need to know. We can always go around and around in circles on what's the most efficient thing, or what should save us the most in taxes, or what's your political leaning and what's your prediction for taxes in the future and all these other things. But in the end, this is your money, and you have to do what makes sense to you. So how much do you want to be able to access before you're 60-ish? If it's a lot of the money, then a Roth IRA is for you. If it's literally all of the money, then the answer is still a taxable brokerage. So let's talk about the reason that is. If you want to be able to access lots of the money, you can still do that through a retirement account, through this Roth IRA account, and here's why. As long as you've had a Roth IRA account open for 5 years or more, there's this cool thing that unlocks for you, and that's you being able to access and withdraw your own contributions. Contributions are just the money that you put into the account. So let's say you open a Roth IRA when you turn 18, you've got your first job, you're working away, you're putting money away in there, and then you do that for 12 years, you're investing. By the time you hit 30, you go, you know what? I really need a house. I have no other way to have a down payment. I have no means to do this, but I do have that money in the Roth IRA. And honestly, for me, I would rather prioritize this house over having the most money in retirement. So what you can do is access all of that money that you sent in. What you're not allowed to touch is the gains you got from investing. If that contribution thing is still kind of confusing to you, think of it this way. Let's say that you've invested $10,000 of your own money into the account. It's come out of your paycheck and you've put it in there. But the total account value is $15,000. What this rule is saying is you can't take out all $15,000 because 10 of that is yours that you put in. The other 5 is gains that have happened because it's been invested. So what it is saying is you can take back out that first 10. You can kind of backtrack and say, no, I want that money back, leave the gains you put in there and still not have a taxable event. You're not going to have a penalty. You're not going to have a bunch of taxes. This is a really cool thing and something that the Roth IRA account does that really no other retirement account does. But if you're still investing for retirement, and if you want to have access to literally all of the money before you turn 60, 62-ish, something like that, the taxable brokerage is the way, and here's why. Taxable brokerage account basically has no rules, no limits on it. So even though it's not a specialized account set up for retirement with like special tax breaks and things, you can still use it for retirement savings. And the fact of the matter is, because you're investing it all, you get special tax breaks over and above the rest of us. I think that you could get away with using a taxable brokerage account and never even use a retirement account. If you're really uncomfortable with the limits on a retirement account and you need the maximum flexibility, then a taxable brokerage account is still going to serve you well. Because whenever you're pulling money out of that, you're going to have what's called long-term capital gains taxes. This only applies to your profits. So let's say you've got $3 million in there whenever you're going to retire and you're 59. The money that you're pulling out, even if it's all profit, will still get taxed way better than your job ever taxed you. The tax rates for someone who's invested are really, really low compared to someone just getting a paycheck. So even doing that, you're going to be okay. There's going to be some people who disagree with me there, but I think that it's overblown whenever we freak out about our tax rates. When you go, you're still going to encounter long-term capital gains tax rates, which are very, very favorable compared to just ordinary income. And typically those limits only go up year after year. So you're going to be able to pull out more and more that's totally tax-free, even with a taxable brokerage. Okay, let's go back up here to the top to that initial kind of question. Do you want to access the money without any penalty before you're 60-ish? If you know right now that that answer is no, you're just, I'm good, leave it in there, let it grow, that's cool. Let's keep going down here. Do you want to save any money on taxes now? Because one of the questions that we have to ask whenever we're using these kinds of retirement accounts is, do you want to save money on taxes now? Or do you want to save money on taxes later? And this is where things can get sometimes political for people, because they'll say, well, because of this policy, or because of the way the country's going, or because of this president, it means certain things for our taxes, which means we should do this thing with our money so that we save the most money on taxes. I say no one can predict the future. I'm really not a political person in general, but even if you are, you can't predict the future. And so I think the answer to this question for us also just comes down to, what's your personal preference? Do you feel like it would be best for you and most satisfying for you to save money on taxes now this year? Or do you think it'd be more satisfying for you to save money on taxes in retirement? I think there's one factor here that people don't talk about enough, and that is that whenever you're retired then, if you choose this other account, then you know exactly how much money is yours. And in not having to think about taxes again then in the future, it's kind of cool because you go, okay, everything in this account is mine. I never have to think about taxes. All I'm going to do is take out the money that I need to live off of, and I'm good. So let's talk about that one first. If you're saying, no, let's save money on taxes later, we're talking about a Roth IRA. So the cool thing about a Roth IRA is that whenever you put money into it, it's already been taxed. It's the same thing as the money that you get in your paycheck, in that taxes have already been taken out. You know how your company that gives you a paycheck withholds taxes, and you don't get like the full paycheck, part of it goes towards paying your taxes now. That's the same kind of money that goes into a Roth IRA, after tax income. So because the government has taxed that income once, it's done. They don't need to tax it again. So you put after-tax income into this account, then it grows tax-free for forever. So dividends that you're getting, tax-free. Profits that you're getting in there from just gains, tax-free. Which then means whenever it comes time to retire, all of that money is yours. No worries about taxes. No worries about what the whatever president in the future in 2055 is doing because he's got crazy political leanings that don't agree with you. Who cares? Let him tax some people. You're not worried about it because you've paid your taxes way back in 2030 or 2025 or whenever you put all this money in here, so you don't have to think about it. And if you remember from before, the Roth IRA also gets that cool benefit of after 5 years being able to take out your contributions. So that's kind of a superpower amongst retirement accounts. But there is kind of a trade-off with a Roth that I want you to be sure that you know about, because if you're planning on using it at this point but you don't meet the requirements, it's going to be kind of a bummer. So I'd rather break the news to you now so that you can accept it and then go, okay, let's figure out something else. The two biggest limitations to a Roth IRA are income limits and contribution limits. So the income limit with a Roth IRA says if you make too much money, you're not allowed to use this account. Now those limits are really high, so most of us don't have to worry about it. But just so you know what they are, for the 2023 tax year, if your modified adjusted gross income is over $153,000, you can't contribute to a Roth anymore. If you're married filing jointly and that modified adjusted gross income number is above $228,000 for the tax year 2023, you can't contribute to a Roth. So that's like the top, 5 or 10% of income for the United States. So the rest of us, the 90 or 95% of us that make less money than that, we can still use a Roth. But if you're a high income individual and you're making more money than that, A, congratulations, you're adding tons of value to the marketplace, you're getting paid really well, good job. And B, you probably need to look at this next account. So this next account is for people who either can't use a Roth IRA because you make too much money, good job, or you want to save money on taxes now, this year. That account for you will be a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k. And here's why. Both a traditional IRA and a traditional 401k are using what's called before tax income. And the interesting thing about that is whenever you send that money into the investing account, it's almost like the government pretends you didn't even make the money. They go, oh, well, Brendan put that money into this account, so that means that it wasn't his to go spend on race cars and burritos, and it wasn't his to buy a new camera with. So instead of us taxing him on that money because he got to keep it, we're just going to pretend like the money never even existed. This lowers your taxable income. And so even though I use this determining factor of when do you want to save money on taxes, yes, now, and you should use these accounts for that, it's kind of a double benefit for you because if you are one of those high earners, what this does is allow you to tell the government, I've made less income here, so even though you're using that money, you're benefiting from investing that money, the government isn't taxing you on it this tax year. So the year that you send that money into that account, you're not getting taxed on that money. Both of these accounts have contribution limits, but they're fairly high by the time you add them up, and you can use both of them at the same time. So you can use a traditional IRA and a 401k both, which is going to lower your taxable income by quite a bit. So a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA both have the same contribution limit, which for 2023 is $6,500 per year. So you can put that in there, lower your taxable income by that much. And then a 401k has even higher limits. Starting in 2023, you can contribute up to $22,500 of your own income into your 401k. So between the 401k and the traditional IRA, let's do that math. What is that? $29,000 you can send in there, not get taxed on this year, lower your taxable income by that much this year, and have that money invested and working for you. Typically, those limits change over time, so if you're watching this video in 2025 or 2030, make sure you check and see what they are then, because they'll probably be even higher. As of right now, those accounts also don't have income limits, so you're free to use them no matter what money you make. But the caveat of these is that because you saved money on taxes now, you're going to have to pay taxes later. So you've chosen to have that benefit today, which can be really great. I mean, saving 20% or 30% on almost 30 grand is a significant chunk of money that you get to keep in your pocket now and use now because you're alive and well now. So let's take that trip, or let's pay off this debt, or let's do something else with that money. So I get that like sense of urgency to take the money and take the benefit now and use it. But you have to know that whenever that time comes and you're retired and you need some income and you're going to take it out of your traditional IRA or your 401k, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money. Here, let's zoom out and get my face out of here so you don't have to see this with my face blocking the chart. In case you want to screenshot this, in case you want to see this for yourself for the future, here you go. Boom. Show this to your friend. Actually, send this video to your friend. Instead of texting this image to somebody, just send this whole video to your friend and make sure that they watch it, because that is a thank you to me for making this video and for sneaking this content over to you from my paid course. There's kind of a trend with these too. If you look along the bottom here, what I wanted to point out is that with a traditional IRA or a 401k, you've overall got a smaller amount of flexibility than you do with a Roth IRA, because that money's totally locked up, versus a Roth IRA, you can take out your contributions after 5 years. And then the most flexibility is over to the far right at the taxable brokerage account. So if any of these questions that you're answering, you kind of go, man, I have no idea, then just lean more towards the right there. If you thought maybe traditional IRA, maybe you're okay to save money on taxes later, or maybe you think you might want to have the flexibility to take that money out, then lean more towards the right here, because more towards the right is more flexibility, if you will. And obviously the taxable brokerage is the maximum flexibility possible. So what about that instance that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that was like, people actually lose their money, like they lose their keys. I mean, they lose track of this money that they have and they don't understand that they've actually got this money somewhere, but they don't know where it is. That happens with people's 401ks. And it can happen on the employer side or it can happen on the employee side. So on the employer side, let's say you leave that job where you had the 401k, you'd been sending money in there, there's some number of thousands of dollars in it, and you take off to another job. Well, if you don't transfer that money over into another account that's yours, and it's still sitting there with the account that your employer had chosen, then they might lose track of you if you move or change your name or otherwise kind of break contact. And so you've got to keep track of that account to be able to use that money later. I guess there's also a chance, which I haven't heard of people talking about, but I wonder if the investment company got acquired or something else happened to where they changed names, maybe they lose track of somebody. That would really stink, because they could kind of have that connection lost between you and your money. So you want to work hard to keep track of any of those accounts that you left. Even if they're past employers, you're not working for them anymore, the 401k money that you had in there is still yours. And then the same thing can kind of happen on the employee side, Could happen that maybe you leave that job in a huff and you're like, screw those guys, I don't want anything to do with them, and you throw away all the old paperwork you had at that job. That could be bad, because that could be your money that you're throwing away. Not literally, just your account info needs to be kept so that you can actually access that money later. Now, what I recommend doing if you leave a job is not to leave your 401k with whatever investment company that they're using. I think you should transfer that money from the 401k into a traditional IRA that's under your control. And the beauty of that is that A, you choose where it's going, so that's really good. And B, you can keep putting more money into it. Because if you leave a job that hosts that 401k, you can't put more money into that account. You can access it, you can take it out now and have a penalty, or you could leave it there until your retirement age and take it out and not have a penalty. You can do all that still, but you can't keep investing in it. So it's kind of lame, because it's kind of like locked up. It's like a Ziploc bag that's sealed and welded shut. So instead, if you transfer that over into a traditional IRA, then it's totally flexible in terms of, hey, I can put more money into it, or I can let it sit there, but you get to at least choose who's hosting that money for you. It's a good idea. At this point, you might be asking, okay, that's cool. So how do I get started? Where do I invest my money at all? Because I want to do this. I know what account I want to use now, but where do I go? Well, to figure that out for this year, click on this video and watch that one next, because it's the best investing apps for beginners, and it will lay all that out for you really clearly. And speaking of flexibility, the secret comment word for today is yoga, because maybe you need an investing account that's really flexible, like someone who does yoga, taxable brokerage. Or maybe you're more like me, you're not very flexible. Unfortunately, I should stretch more. And you could do a 401k or a traditional IRA less flexible. All right, thanks. See you next time. Bye.